Steve Jobs, Thomas Edison, and Benjamin Franklin all had this personality. The inventing personality is one of the most fun personalities to watch because they create things for fun. This is how they're learning, and it's really enjoyable to watch what they bring into being. Some of the really great qualities of inventing is that they love to experiment. They love to take something that they don't really know how it works and just mess with it this way and that way. And every toddler is an inventor. You know, you watch them, you give them a new toy, and they just try every little part of it because they want to know how it works and how to bring it into that knowledge into their lives. And so they just mess with it. They experiment with it. Some kids continue with this personality quality, you know, it is actually their personality and not just something that they have as a toddler, into forever, their whole lives. They are just tinkerers. They like to try new things. They like to experiment with them. They have the ability to focus super intently. And another way to look at this is that they have the ability to lose track of time and miss appointments and not be aware that they've been called to lunch 3 times. So their ability to focus can be seen actually as a challenge, but it's also really important because they're thinking a problem through and they see all the little appendage problems and they're solving all the little pieces of it as they go and trying to create something big and useful out of pretty much nothing except what's inside their head. And that takes a lot of focus. And so that is one of the skills they have, is that they're able to really use that focus intensely. They like to research things that have practical uses. So these guys are not really into learning and studying about inventions just to know about them. They want to create something that is usable. We're talking about engineers and not philosophers. These guys want something that will fix a problem, that will stop a pain point, that they're going to actually create something that will make things in the world better around them. And what a great personality that is. I love having inventors in my house who can just improve our house just by saying, hey, I think it would be better if we used this tool in this way, or I created a tool that would actually improve this. So it is a really wonderful personality to have around the house for improving things. They don't actually enjoy researching. They don't like reading. You know, they're not the kind of people who are going to sit down and read for hours on end, but they will sort of do it. They'll withstand the pain of studying because they want to know what it is that they need to know about whatever it is that they're interested in at that moment. And so they will go through the pain of really researching deeply into whatever it is that they're looking at. And they'll look at spur ideas, right? So if they're really interested in creating a machine that, I don't know, some sort of a bike, they're going to spend a lot of time learning about rotational energy and learning about the pressure that is put on wheels and learning about torque that you can do. So they will spend a lot of times looking at different aspects of it and researching deeply into those. But then once they've got that, they sort of are done researching, and they're done really with people for a while, because then they get into the real work of being who they are and they start creating and inventing whatever it is that they are pressing forward to try to make. They do ask a ton of questions, like so many questions, and it drives people crazy. But it's also really good because this is them trying to understand the world around them, trying to understand the depth of something that they're working on and to bring it into a place where it's useful. Because a lot of people, some personalities, they want to learn for the benefit of learning. They just want the knowledge in their head. They want to be able to make connections in their head and feel really satisfied with having that knowledge. That is not this personality. This personality wants knowledge for a specific purpose. They want to be able to go forward and say, I know how to use this particular idea, and I'm going to twist it or change it or apply it in a way that hasn't been before to make something new and better in my life and in the lives of people that I know and interact with, because I'm trying to create. I'm not trying to just understand. So that's a big focus of what they do. They are really good at a lot of things. One of them is that they invent solutions to everyday problems. We had a babysitter when my kids were quite young, and he would always create inventions that were so cool. So every time he came over to be with the kids, he would fix something in our house, or he would, create a toy or use the toys that they already had and make them in a new way. And I think at this point he's a mechanical engineer, which is perfect for him. And it's just really fascinating that these people aren't necessarily looking forward to, hey, someday I'm going to use these things. They're using them right now, all the time. Every tiny little thing that they do, they are improving and fixing and manipulating and twisting things into better ways for everybody around them. So it's pretty cool. They love brainstorming with people who know what they're talking about on a specific subject, so they can really have a deep conversation with somebody and talk about a lot of things and listen really, really well and absorb a lot of information. But then as soon as they're done with that brainstorming session, they pretty much walk away and they're focused on creating at that point. When it comes to showing what they have learned, they do much better at creating a project than they do at creating a report. They don't really want to write it down. In fact, it seems quite annoying to write something down to them that they feel like, why? It's already been written, especially if I'm doing a research project. It's literally stuff that people have already discovered and I'm just organizing it in a new way. That is lame. It's way better to create a prototype or some sort of, Hero 6 or whatever. I want to create something that will allow people to change the way that they interact with the world. And so they do better at creating a project to show what they've learned than writing a paper. And their minds do run from subject to subject really quickly, and this can get them in trouble in a lot of settings that people will feel like, you are not listening. I was talking to you about the moon, and now you're telling me how crystal is made, and I know that you are not listening to me. But the reality is they are listening. They took it from the moon and they followed some sort of crazy track, and now they got to crystals, and it is just that their mind works very spatially, and they're able to make connections, and they also are trying to say, well, the moon's out there, but what can I use that information to create something with? And so their ability to jump subjects can be seen as not listening, but it's actually a form of really active listening because they're just moving very quickly through what you're saying out loud and what they know in their head through their experience and how they can connect those ideas. Some of the challenges that we run into with this particular personality is that they don't really like being playful or sitting around and talking. It feels like a little bit of a waste of time to them. They're like, why aren't we building something? Why aren't we creating something? And they're not necessarily really good at social situations because it doesn't seem valuable to them. And so that can be a challenge that needs to be addressed so that, you have to interact in the world. So that's something that maybe you can address and make sure that they're okay with that as well. They don't like to stick to a schedule. I don't think they even like to have a schedule to begin with. They really like that free, open time to be able to say, I have this idea, I'm going to chase it until I have a new idea or until I'm tired or whatever. They want that freedom and that autonomy. Schedules are stifling for this personality. So having lots of open space in your schedule is very important for teaching these kids. They're not really good at organizing and planning. So even though they're trying to create something, they'll maybe get halfway through and then quit because they don't have the skill of saying, what do I need to do to be able to accomplish whatever I'm trying to achieve? If I'm building this, what do I need to gather up so that I can build it? And when I get halfway through, what do I need to do to push through to finish it when, something else got my attention and I want to wander off and do that. So those skills can be something that they might need to work on a little bit. But they have certain subjects that they are have this natural affinity to, that they're really, really good at. Obviously, it's going to be engineering. They are really good at building things that benefit the people around them. Also, they can have a sort of sidetrack into electronics, that a lot of the same ideas are here in electronics, that they're creating new things that make the world better around them. Robotics, to me, is kind of the marriage of engineering and electronics, that they're able to now take those two things and turn them into robotics. But that's a lot of fun for a lot of kids. They like to be able to say, how can I turn this into a machine that will do something for me? That's exciting and fun. Architectural design is also something that these guys really enjoy. They like seeing all the different parts, the Greek and the Roman style, and how gorgeous those things are, and how can I build something so that the arch doesn't collapse and so I can have a dome, and how can I do all of these things? So that's another great way to use these spatial skills and these problem-solving skills that they naturally have. And pretty much all the sciences, they like biology and they like chemistry and they like physical sciences. They like actually getting in there and interacting with the world. And really, science is just the study of the world as it is. So they like that because then they can take that information and turn it into something that they can build. So how do you teach to this particular personality? You want to be able to allow them time to question and design and discover. So most of the personalities you have to allow time for. The producing personality, really, you can structure them and they'll really enjoy that. Every other personality just needs chunks of time that they can do stuff. And they need inspiration that shows them, hey, this is something that's really interesting and fascinating. What could you build that would make this better? Present a problem to them and then say, how can you fix this? And maybe put parameters on it. How can you fix it with these things that I've gathered into this bucket? Or how could you fix it for this type of people in this particular situation? it's really fascinating to see how these kids can come up with a solution. I'm trying to remember, there was a group of kids that one of my children was in, and they had to solve a problem that there are these kids in Africa, and they weren't able to make it all the way to and from their location because there was a water shortage. And so their solution was to set up a pop machine that dispensed lemonade halfway through their journey. And it's hilarious because immediately I'm like, there are problems with that solution. Yeah, there are, but they came up with that solution on their own. They saw a problem, they found a way to solve it. It was not the way I found, but I tell you, the elasticity and the creativity of young minds finds more solutions than we ever can as adults who are like, no, I see all the problems with that. Okay, anybody can see problems. These guys see solutions. They are able to find a way forward, and it's really creative, and it's ways that often we don't think of, and a lot of times we want to shut down because we're like, that's not realistic. Don't do that. Let them come up with their unrealistic ideas, because that is what gets us into outer space, and it's what gets us, having computers and stuff. It is these unrealistic ideas that these guys live on that really presses things forward. So it's really exciting to watch what they come up with, and they need time to be able to do that. And experiments. You're going to need to allow them to have hands-on models and videos of all sorts of subjects. This is nice that you can actually just show a video on it and say, hey, did you know that they created this robot that can do this? And that's inspiring for them. And they're like, oh, I bet I could come up with a robot with what we've got around here. One of the things also you need to do is have things around you, have springs, have strings, have duct tape, have things that they can use to create new things, because they're messy. This type of personality is not going to be neat and tidy, but they are creating something truly amazing with their life, and also with all the stuff that's sitting around your house. These guys can kind of do social or not social, just depending on the other parts of their personality, but they could work really well independently. That they can have a project that is in their head, and they can work just by themselves creating this project. They also, a lot of them I've seen work really well in groups and collaborate really, really well. And so I think that's needed, both groups and alone time, to be able to allow them to work on their projects and create things which are going to look like a mess for years. They're just going to look like a disaster happened in your house. And so maybe keep it in a corner or something so you can maintain your sanity, but that is the seeds of greatness and their ability to create things that are really useful as they grow up. And they like intellectual debates. This kind of fascinates me, that they, of all the things that they create, they also want to intellectually debate, because they want to know, they want to understand the underlying stuff behind it. And so they like talking with other people and figuring out what is truth and how can I apply it to whatever it is I'm working on. So again, motivating people is super important. And one of the things that we want to do is to acknowledge them for their cleverness. They are really smart, and they're able to see solutions where a lot of people only see problems. So recognize that. And also that they discover things, they discover truths. And a lot of times what they're discovering, you already knew, but they didn't. And having that process of discovering is really important. And so recognizing and saying, that is a wonderful discovery, good job. That's really important in this process as well. And they solve problems that are not on a worksheet that have an A, B, or C answer. They just say, that chair wobbles, I think I can fix that. And they are able to solve real world problems. So recognizing that they are doing that, they are progressing by solving those problems, that's super important. So be sure to acknowledge that they are doing that. And one of the best ways that you can motivate these kids is just use their inventions in real life. If they came up with the best spoon to accomplish your special spoon needs, be sure that you use that spoon, because that validates them in a way that says, what you have created will change my life. I'm going to use it, and it's worth your time and effort. That's a great way to motivate them. Okay. Finally, this comes up in a lot of personalities, but it's just true. You have to create space. They're going to make a mess. So physical space needs to be available for them to combine chemicals or screw things together or whatever. They have to have some room in which to do this. I don't like a lot of mess. I know a lot of people who don't, so, quarantine it. But it can still make sure that they have that space so that you're not shutting it down, because that's really saying the way you learn is invalid, and we're not going to create space for that. So make sure that there's space in their day and in their physical space that they can create things. You want them to actually question and debate and explore, and sometimes that can be hard, that you feel like, please stop questioning, please stop exploring, please just sit down. But this is how they learn, this is how they interact, this is how they look at the world and they say, I want to figure this out. They do it by asking questions and exploring, and so you want to create space where that is possible for them. I keep bringing this up, but it's so true. You have to provide unscheduled time that they can just have to work independently. And it can be scheduled for you. You can say, I know that this time to this time belongs to them, but for them, there's nothing that is required inside of that time. That is open. There's no, half an hour in, you're gonna have to report on what you're doing. It's just free. They can do whatever they want in that block of time. And that's really important so that they have plenty of space to be able to make those creations and those connections. Kids with the inventing personality bring so much to the world, not just when they're adults and they're amazingly successful scientists or engineers, but in your home, they're able to bring a lot of creativity and a lot of solutions to problems that sometimes we don't even recognize as problems, but they see them and they work hard to create solutions for them. So encouraging that and helping them have plenty of space for that learning process and the way that they learn is really important to their ability to press forward on their personal life mission and do well with what is theirs naturally inside of them. That's it. And I will see you on the next one. Thanks.